It started with a bowl of gravy. Not the kind of moment you expect to change your life. But sometimes the smallest actions reveal the ugliest truths. My name is Arthur Bennett. I'm 69 years old, a retired financial investigator, and last Thanksgiving my own daughter tried to take everything I had. But what she didn't know was that I had already been preparing for months. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that you never imagined they could betray you? Someone you loved, someone you raised. Because sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. If you've ever experienced something like that, share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy powerful real-life inspired stories like this one, consider subscribing. Now, let me take you back to where it began. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my daughter Emily called me. That alone was unusual. Emily used to visit often when she was younger, but after my wife Helen passed away 4 years ago, the visits became rare. Sometimes months would pass without a single call. So when my phone rang that Tuesday afternoon and I saw her name, I knew something was different. "Hi, Dad," she said warmly. Too warmly. "Emily," I replied. "This is a surprise." "Well, Mark and I were thinking," she continued carefully. "Maybe we could celebrate Thanksgiving at your place this year. You know, like we used to." Her voice sounded nostalgic, but something about it felt rehearsed. I leaned back in my chair. "That sounds nice," I said slowly. And that's when she added the detail that made my instincts start screaming. "Oh, and a couple of Mark's business friends might join us too." Business friends. At Thanksgiving. I didn't say anything about my suspicion. Instead, I smiled into the phone. The more the merrier. You see, before retirement, I spent 32 years investigating financial crimes. Fraud, money laundering, embezzlement. My entire career involved spotting lies hidden inside polite conversations. And when Emily hung up the phone that afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I started digging. Within a few hours, I discovered the truth. Mark's construction company was collapsing. They owed nearly $1 million in unpaid loans. 2 projects had been shut down. 3 lawsuits were pending. And worst of all, their house was days away from foreclosure. But the real surprise came when I researched those business friends. Their names were Leonard and Diane Walker. On paper, they ran a senior living consulting company. In reality, they specialized in convincing elderly homeowners to transfer property into complicated trusts. Once the paperwork was signed, the homeowners would slowly lose control of everything they owned. Several victims had already lost their homes. One had even been moved into a care facility against his will. And suddenly Emily's sudden Thanksgiving invitation made perfect sense. They weren't coming for dinner. They were coming for my house. That evening, I called my attorney, Daniel Reyes. Daniel had handled my legal affairs for nearly 20 years. "Arthur," he said when he answered, "you rarely call this late. What's wrong?" "I think my daughter is planning to steal my house," I told him calmly. There was a long pause. "Are you serious?" "Very." I explained everything I had discovered. When I finished speaking, Daniel sighed. "So what do you want to do?" I looked around my quiet home. The house Helen and I had built together 40 years earlier. The same house where Emily had grown up. "I want proof," I said. The next morning, a security team arrived. They installed small cameras throughout the house. Living room, dining room, kitchen, even the hallway outside the guest bedrooms. Tiny microphones were hidden in lamps and decorations. Every conversation would be recorded and stored securely online. When the technicians finished, the team leader asked me something unusual. "Sir, may I ask why someone would need surveillance inside their own home?" I gave him a tired smile. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "family can be the most dangerous strangers." The days leading up to Thanksgiving passed slowly. Emily called twice. Each time she sounded sweeter than the last. She asked how I was feeling. She asked if I was managing the house alone. She even asked if I was remembering to pay my bills. I played along. I pretended to be forgetful. I acted confused about small things. The more helpless I seemed, the more excited she sounded. By Wednesday night, everything was ready. Cameras recording, attorney on standby, and my retired neighbor Carl, a former police officer, ready to call the authorities if things turned ugly. All that remained was waiting. Thanksgiving afternoon finally arrived. At exactly 2 o'clock, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Emily stepped out first. She looked elegant, confident. Behind her came Mark, constantly checking his phone. Then another car arrived. Leonard and Diane Walker. The investors. I opened the door slowly, pretending my knees hurt. "Emily," I said warmly, It's been too long. She hugged me briefly. Hi, Dad. Her eyes immediately drifted past me into the house. Inspecting, measuring, calculating. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Turkey, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie. For the first hour we talked about harmless things. Weather, travel, old memories. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way. Eventually Diane leaned forward. Arthur, she said gently. Emily told us you've been living alone for quite a while now. That's right. That must be difficult. Some days. She nodded sympathetically. Well, Leonard and I specialize in helping seniors simplify their lives. Here it comes, I thought. She explained their solution. A life care trust. I would transfer ownership of my home. In exchange, they would guarantee financial support and care for the rest of my life. It sounded generous. If you didn't know the truth. I looked at Emily. What do you think about this? Her smile widened. I think it's perfect, Dad. That's when I decided to stop pretending. I leaned back in my chair. Interesting, I said calmly. Then I turned to Mark. Is this plan related to the $900,000 your company owes creditors? The table went silent. Mark's face turned pale. How do you know that? Old habits, I said. Then I looked at Leonard. And I'm also familiar with your previous clients. Diane's smile disappeared. This conversation is becoming inappropriate. Is it? I replied. Because from where I'm sitting it looks like 4 people trying to manipulate an old man out of his home. Emily slammed her hand on the table. Dad, stop this. But I wasn't finished. I also know your mortgage is about to default. I continued calmly. And that you believe if I'm declared mentally incompetent, Emily could take legal control of my finances. The room felt colder. Mark stood up suddenly. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I said quietly. I know exactly what I'm talking about. That's when things escalated. Mark walked into the kitchen. He returned holding a pot of hot gravy. Listen carefully, he said. You're an old man living alone in a $2 million house. Emily looked nervous. Mark. But he ignored her. If something happened to you, he continued slowly, who would question it? Then he threw the gravy at me. The burning liquid splashed across my chest. Pain shot through my body. But I forced myself to stay calm. Because the cameras had captured everything. Emily panicked. That wasn't part of the plan. Relax, Mark said. We'll say he had an accident. Diane nodded. Confused elderly man. Kitchen accident. I looked directly at my daughter. Emily, is this really what you wanted? She couldn't answer. She just whispered. Dad, just sign the papers. That's when I pulled out my phone and sent a single message to my attorney. 3 words. It's happening now. Then I walked to the front door and flashed the porch light 3 times. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. Sirens filled the street. Officers separated everyone immediately. Paramedics treated my burns. Statements were taken. And soon my attorney arrived with copies of every recording. Every threat. Every conversation. Every plan. All of it documented. Mark was arrested for assault. The Walkers were investigated for fraud. And Emily, well, some betrayals hurt too much to repair. The house is still mine. The garden Helen planted still blooms every spring. But Thanksgiving will never feel the same again. Because sometimes the hardest lesson in life is learning that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Trust does. And trust must be earned.